What's up, everybody? Happy hump day to you out there, and welcome into the Auburn podcast, Auburn Blitz podcast here, and glad to have you with us as we get rolling this morning. A couple things that we want to talk about here on this Wednesday is Texas A&M overlooking Auburn this Saturday and the college football playoff rankings in week 3 that came out yesterday. We'll talk about that, see where the moves are, who's left. There's some definite moving that went on this past weekend. Through the college football playoff rankings, I want to start with something else. So, Randy, did you see Bo Nix's numbers Sunday?
I did. And you had the good fortune of interviewing his father. So I haven't watched that. I've actually got to download our new On the Road with AHSA podcast, or not podcast, but our television show. If y'all don't catch that, please do. It's on WOTM currently, statewide. Got some new outlets it's about to go on, but without the chance to watch, did Patrick Nix talk about Bo any while you did the interview this week?
Yeah, Faith actually interviewed him, so which was really good. I thought she did a really good job. But I got to talk to him off camera for a little bit. So yeah, you know, he's just like a dad. He didn't go into a lot of detail, but he was just saying that. I brought it up, of course, you know that. I said, well, Bo had a pretty good night yesterday. And he said, yeah, he had a pretty good day. But, we just kind of chatted for a little bit about, his progress. I didn't want to get into the weeds. I actually was going to ask him about Brian Harsin and what he thought about him. But I said, no, I'm not going to go down that path. But, one thing, and I don't think he minds sharing this with everybody. I got a chance to talk to him for a little while. Like I said, off camera, and I said, Coach, what do you plan to do when you hang it up? I said, where do you plan to move? And you plan to stay in Phoenix City? And he said, we don't really know yet. He said, getting grandkids and kids, trying to figure out where we're going to settle and all is a big deal at this point in time in their life. And because I asked him, I said, were you able to go watch Bo play? He said, no. He said there was something called Hoover that was getting in the way of him doing that and trying to prepare for that game coming up on Friday. But I thought that, he said they'd like to move maybe back to Birmingham or into Auburn somewhere. And he said, ideally, I'd like to be about a block or two from campus. He said, we'd like to be in a place where we could walk around and be around campus and stuff like that, as we finish out what we're doing, with the rest of our lives. So I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that, Patrick Nix, everybody speculates, what's his feel toward Auburn after the way Bo left. And, people got to remember Bo Nix graduated from Auburn. He played 3 years at Auburn. He wanted to be there. Patrick Nix is, he's in the history books at Auburn. I mean, he had a great career at Auburn. The mystique of him coming in the Iron Bowl and doing what he did, and then, the next couple of years after that, and he has no problem with that. And the vibe that I got, I mean, you don't want to move to a place that you don't, that you have ill will toward. So, but it was unfortunate that the things worked out the way they did with Bo. But you're right, Randy. Watch the show On the Road with the AHSA Radio Network. We love doing that show every week, and we'll keep going into next year with baseball, basketball, softball, all these different sports. Going to be going to all these communities around the state. We've been to a lot of them, been to some great places to eat, man. It is so much fun to go in and meet these people and talk to them and how they got established and all. I love all that stuff. So we've had a good time. But Bo Nix, man, did something a rookie had never done before. 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, a passer efficiency rating of 80% as a rookie. Just a phenomenal player. He's going to be a stud in the NFL.
Well, he's one of the toughest conversations to have as an Auburn fan. There's nothing that disgusts me more than the idea that Bo Nix, the son of Patrick Nix, that is one of the best high school coaches in the state of Alabama, has to leave Auburn University after 3 years to give himself an opportunity to be a pro. And if you spin that any other way, you just aren't looking at it the same way as I do. And he's a prime example that not all situations you should just sit back and just watch it crumble around you. Sometimes you got to jump ship And you got to know that things aren't going in the direction that are going to help you and your folks in your lifetime. And Bo Nix made the right decision. Me as an Auburn fan, I hope and I think all Auburn fans would agree with me watching what we've seen over the last 7 or 8 years is that I think I still cheer for him as much as I ever did. I know my kids do, and I know that, the people that I talk to that are Auburn fans still cheer for him, Brett. So it is very unfortunate that we allowed our program to get to the level that it did, to have someone that's a generational talent like that at Auburn not have the chances to perform up to the level that we saw him go and do once he got to Oregon.
Yeah, I'll always consider him an Auburn Tiger too. I mean, he played 3 years at Auburn. I mean, he did great things at Oregon, obviously, but he did his freshman year at Auburn, had a tremendous season. Was SEC Freshman of the Year and led Auburn to 9 wins, and really had a chance to beat Georgia at home that year too. So it was yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate how it all ended, but again, that goes back to what we talk about on a regular basis on this show most of the time, and that's bad administrative decisions that Auburn's made over time, especially over the last 15 years. And really just the last several have been catastrophic. I mean, it's the only word I can use for football. And I know I hate to keep bringing Brian Harsin up, but, man, that decision off of Malzahn leaving the way he did was, I mean, so detrimental because you brought a guy in here that didn't know squat about the SEC. He didn't know squat about it, Auburn. He was hired by a guy that didn't know anything about Auburn, by a president that approved the whole ordeal that didn't know squat about Auburn and then didn't want to be here. I mean, so, like you said, sometimes you got to cut bait and you got to get out. Also you got to – the leadership at Auburn has to be better at making decisions about what fits Auburn. And so many times we talk about, you got to be the right fit for this. You got to be the right fit for that. And you and I were in a conversation yesterday in another meeting talking about people being a right fit for whatever. I truly think that's important. I mean, you can't just go out there and look at somebody on the surface and go, man, that guy right there. I mean, he's won 47 games and only lost 12 as a coach and, blah, blah, blah. And then you go run out there and grab him. And if he doesn't fit your community, he doesn't fit your style, he's not going to be there. And he's probably not going to do a very good job. I mean, there's more to it than what's on paper. A lot of people, fans get caught up in records and it becomes transactional. You're hearing that word used a lot now. It's just about the wins and the losses and what you see on paper and records and stats and stuff like that. It's more than that, because if you don't get those, if you don't have the relationships and you don't build the continuity that you need. So, man, we've made some grave mistakes. When I say we, Auburn, have made some grave mistakes when it comes to choosing administration and coaches.
Well, I think I've said this since we started the program. What is our identity? I can't give you an answer on that. I couldn't give you an answer on that under Gus Malzahn. I dang sure can't give you an answer on that since then. And if you don't know what your identity and you don't know what culture your program needs to be built around, it's very hard to hire the right guy, Brett, because that's got to be a feeling thing by those that are involved inside. And if those that are involved inside have not been around it or don't know what it means to be an Auburn person, then how do you expect them to come in and just embrace what you and I've known our whole life? I don't think that you can. So, yes, it's very important that you hire the right person. No, we haven't done that. Let me throw one at you. I had this conversation this past week. If Derek Nix moves on to Southern Miss, which it looks like he will, and be the head coach there, and I wish him nothing but the best, deserves his opportunity. Derek Nix is a great guy. Had the good fortune of meeting and being around him a little bit over the last couple of years, and he is a super guy, and I'm cheering him on. Would Pat Nix be a bad hire at Auburn for offensive coordinator?
No, not at all.
I mean, would that not be? And I haven't heard that. No one said that. Phoenix City people don't get upset with me by bringing that up. Please, please. But my gosh, Could we go and do better than that? Than to get someone that has been a proven winner wherever he's been and has orange and blue running through his blood. I don't think even with the exodus that we just said about his son moving on, that was the right decision for that family and that young man when he made it. But Pat Nix, to me, would be a perfect fit there for Auburn.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I just opened up with that. He doesn't have ill will toward Auburn. I mean, as a matter of fact, he's considering moving back to Auburn whenever he decides to retire. I mean, you know, that's just part of the conversation he and I had off camera. And again, I don't know where he ends up, but would he entertain that opportunity? I would definitely think so. Man, that's where he played. That's where he went to college. You know, I mean, it's where he went to school. And yeah, I think you could do a lot worse. And you saw Auburn when Pat Dye was there go back and get Pat Sullivan. And there can be a lot worse things that you can come up with thinking that you can go out. And it's the old adage of, man, I got to go out somewhere else and get somebody way away to do what I need to do. I mean, I lived in an organization that for 20-something years that I watched that happen year after year after year when good people got passed over right there in the building. And you went out and got somebody from some other place and they stayed about 2 years. And guess what? They went out and did it again. You know, and you had loyal people that had been entrenched and had proven that they were a long haul for that particular organization, and they just kept getting overlooked. I mean, sometimes, you know, the answer's right under your nose. And again, we don't know that that's even an option for him. He may not want to do that, but he coached at Miami. He coached at Georgia Tech. He's been in college. He's done it, and he did a good job when he was there. So I think maybe if that's an option in the back of his mind, if that phone call was made, I think he would entertain it. Now, is he free? He's going to do that? I don't know. I don't know. But we got to get this offense figured out. Look, the more I thought about it last night, I had to do Sports Blitz Live with Andy, and on what we've talked about the last couple of weeks, and looking at DJ Durkin and what he's done on the defensive side of the football. And you said it, we hired an offensive-minded coach, and that's our dang problem. You know, offense has been our problem. And
we keep doing it.
But our defense is top 15, top 20 in the country, and we're good enough to be in the college football playoff talk. Our roster, look, I've watched a couple other shows of outsiders talking about Auburn, and they said, hey, this about not having the roster right is over. He's like, there's a lot of teams Auburn has a better roster than in the SEC right now. You know, I wouldn't trade our roster for Vanderbilt's, would you?
My gosh, no.
I wouldn't trade our roster for Missouri's. I wouldn't trade our roster for Arkansas's. I wouldn't trade our roster for California's. I wouldn't trade our roster for Oklahoma. But guess what? We lost all those teams. Why did we lose? It wasn't because of defense. It was because offense was inept. And it didn't do the things that it needed to do, and it turned the football over. And you and I went through Peyton Thorne's offensive numbers yesterday, and when you throw for 2,100 yards and 17 touchdowns or 19 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, you know, those are numbers good enough to be in the playoff talk. And then they're not, because the efficiency and the discombobulation and the unorganization on the offensive side of the football has put us in a bad situation. Now, we've struggled with our special teams too, that I think has dictated and caused some problems in games with missed field goals. But for the most part, the turnovers and the inefficiency in the red zone have been the Achilles heel. This is not, again, I'll keep saying it, this is not a bad football team. This is not a bad football team. The record is a bad record, but the team as a whole has the pieces, if you get all your crap together, to do what you need to do to compete.
You and I aren't paid to do it. I keep saying that. And I don't get the opportunity to pick and choose those that I surround myself with that hopefully get me to the promised land. I can only bring up some names that are out there that I feel like would be a good fit, and that's the reason we kind of ran down that old rabbit hole right there to start things off, Brett. There's a lot of good pieces in the state of Alabama. We've seen Bill Clark go from the high school ranks at Prattville to South Alabama to greatness, and then UAB, and then they feel like that instead of going the Vincent route, they got to go hire some outsider in Trent Dilfer to come in there and fix that program, which is a prime example of what you're saying. You've got to pick what your identity and what the culture you choose to have at your university, and you have the option to do that. But for Auburn, for so long in football, I don't think we've had one, and I don't think we've had leadership in place that know what we care about as Auburn fans and what we care about and what we grew up with in the 80s, watching Pat Dye build that has slowly dwindled down to what the product is now. So hopefully we'll get it back. Again, all you and I can do is talk about it and hope and pray that we find someone that can bring football up to where Bruce Pearl has basketball. There's you a good segue, Brett.
There you go. Well, let's talk about what Mike Elko said yesterday. Okay, so and the reason I said is A&M overlooking Auburn. Freudian slip or not, okay? He was asked about looking ahead to Texas because that's a rival renewed. They haven't played in a long time, but this has implications on who goes even possibly to Atlanta and then who stays in the playoff hunt and whatnot. And this is what he said. He said, I don't think it's an issue. I think when you're in the situation we're in, it's easy to focus on the task at hand. I think those big games earlier in the year, maybe you look ahead. If we didn't have at stake what's at stake, maybe you would worry about it. But I think our focus is single-handedly on Texas. I mean Auburn right now, and locked in with what we got to get done. Okay? Doesn't sound like a guy that's locked in on Auburn. I mean, when you just get asked a question and you go through all this and go, man, we are solely focused on Texas. I mean Auburn. Again, probably just a slip. I thought it was funny, and everybody else has kind of taken that and ran with it a little bit. They may be overlooking Auburn a little bit, which means it's prime for Auburn to go in there and do what they need to do. Look, they're only a 2.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
And he went on to talk about, hey, being a defensive coordinator at Texas A&M and coming over to Auburn, and they're not faring too well for them. And, you know, most of the games that they played have been earlier games when Texas A&M's played at Auburn, save the one a couple years ago with Cadillac Williams coming over. But for the most part, they've been during the day. He said this is going to be a crazy environment. So, no, they're not really overlooking Auburn, but I bet you $1 million that Texas game on the horizon, they're not putting all their focus on Auburn. They're doing work during the week to get prepared for Texas too, because it's a rival game. And, you know, we saw how Auburn slipped up against New Mexico State last year and just laid an egg and then came back and were 3 minutes away from beating Alabama in the Iron Bowl. I mean, it's just human nature. You're going to look ahead.
Yeah, this is not a world-beating team at Texas A&M. I've watched at least 3 or 4 of a majority of their games. Sometimes they'll go out there and you'll feel like this is a team that's just going to take it to Missouri like we saw, and you go, man, Texas A&M's really got it going. And then the following week, they're mediocre at best. So I think the 2.5-point line's right. Can Auburn play better than we've been playing? I'm hopeful. We've got to find offense. Where they are good at times when they're going well is on the edges defensively. And they've had defensive linemen over the last decade, Brett. You know, when they first entered the SEC, it was the weakness up front was how you could expose Texas A&M. For the last 5 or 6 years, that hasn't been the case. Those guys have put some massive defensive linemen into the pros, and I think they got a couple of them right now. So can our offensive line play up to the standard that we've had a couple of times this year? That's the X factor in this football game. And can we ride Jarquez Hunter out to 20 to 25 carries? And I mean, just like we talked about yesterday, those 20, 25 carries means, okay, the RPO doesn't show that we need to hand the football off here. But by damn, I'm going to hand the football off here because he's my best football player. And if that's the case, then I like Auburn's chances. I really do on Saturday night. Weather's going to be a little bit cooler. It's going to be down in the 40s. So
I'm excited
looking forward
about
to being in there. I'm excited to go, and I hope they give us something to cheer for.
Yeah, we need it. I mean, let's be honest. I keep saying that, and people go, well, why do you need anything? I'm not – Auburn needs something positive, especially
Yes.
during their stadium, especially in an SEC game. That's what I mean by that. All right, let's shift over. College football playoff rankings came out for the third week, and Oregon remains. Man, they dodged a bullet. Oregon, they hung on and did what they had to do. And, you know, we all know that. You know, when teams make runs to a national title, you can always go back and look at a couple of games on the schedule where they had to find a way to escape a near loss. And Oregon did that this past week, so they remain number one. Ohio State is at number two. Texas is number three. That's at, you know, Texas A&M sitting there looking ahead at that Texas team sitting there at number three. But Texas, I didn't think looked very good against Arkansas. You know, Arkansas came back and cut it to 3 points, and then they were able to score one more touchdown at the end. But Quinn Ewers hasn't overly impressed me this year. His numbers were vanilla in that game. I think he may be an issue for Texas. I know that's crazy to say, but right now, Texas, they're number three because somebody's got to be number three, and they've won their games. And but for the most part, they have at times looked like they did against that Arkansas team, and they look very beatable. Penn State is 4. I mean, they really played one game and lost it, in my opinion. And but again, somebody's got to be 4, and then Indiana's at 5. And I know the story is Kirk Cignetti and all that, but you talk about weak as water. You talking about a schedule that has got Eastern and Western and Northern and Southern Illinois and East Buda and all that, and there they sit at 5. And look, again, I said this the other day. Indiana has not been a good program in God knows when. I mean, they have had flashes over the couple years, but they scheduled a schedule so they could win 6 football games in a conference where they know they don't win very many. And so now they got a good coach and they got a good team, and they're running through this schedule, and everybody's like, well, you know, do they deserve to be up there? Well, they've won the games, but again, you got to remember, they scheduled based on being a crappy program. Now they're a good program. Next year, they need to change their schedule. They need to amend their schedule. They've got one real football game ahead of them, and it's Ohio State. And if they beat Ohio State at number 2, yeah, do they deserve to be in the playoff talk? Absolutely.
Agree.
If they lose that game, they need to go. I mean, if they finish 11-1 on the season and the only game they played was Ohio State and they lose it, they need to get out, because it's not fair to Texas and Tennessee and Miami and Georgia and Ole Miss and Alabama and all these other schools that play ungodly teams every week, and they're up there playing the Sisters of the Poor every week and trying to prepare for one game. And if they lose that game, they need to go. They need to get out. And people don't need to go, well, Indiana got screwed, and and we get on the camera like TCU did that year, and we ought to be in the 14 playoff. And then TCU finally cried their way in and got the hell beat out of them by Georgia in a national championship game. So I think people are kind of over that little sob story. So Indiana, if you lose to Ohio State, in my opinion, you don't have an argument. You just get out, go to a really good bowl, celebrate a good season, and then schedule up. They just re-signed Cignetti to an 8-year extension. You're going to have him. Go out and get you some tougher teams to go play. But that's through the first 5 right there.
Well, it's the beauty of NIL. You can buy you a team and you can turn it around in a short period of time. And Cignetti's been able to do that, and he can sell that program. So I tip my hat to them. I think it really depends on how they play too, Brett. If they lose by a field goal at the end to an Ohio State team that we
that's different too. That's different.
So I think watching the way that game plays out is more important. But if they get run out of the gym, get beat by 3 or 4 touchdowns, then I'm right there with
them. Got to get out. Got to get out.
Because back to a couple of SEC teams. Watching Georgia play Texas, there's no comparison.
No.
If they played 10 times, Georgia would beat them by 3 touchdowns 10 times. Now, Georgia's had some moments this year where they didn't look up to the standard that they have been. So I think that is parity creeping into college football. But I'm with you on Texas too. I still don't think that Texas is up to the consistent standard that we've seen with Georgia and the SEC over the last 10 years.
Not saying they can't get there, and they're not. I mean, again, they're sitting there at number 3. I'd love to be sitting at number 3. for sure. Notre Dame is 6, Alabama 7, Miami 8, Ole Miss 9, Georgia 10. Tennessee drops to 11. They're still in there, so they still have their path ahead of them. And then Boise finally creeps into the top 12, which we knew they were going to have to take somebody's spot because they're in that group of 5 spot that's got to go into the 12-team playoff. SMU right there on the outside looking in at 13, BYU at 14, and then there's Texas A&M at 15. And Texas A&M wins out, they'll be in the top 12, and they know that. And Mike Elko's first year, I mean, what can you say? I mean, that's a hell of a job. You can't say anything other than that. Now, if they lay an egg against Auburn, they're out, and then they have to go into that Texas game deflated, and it's probably not going to end well in that one for them either. But they've got a ton left to play for. Colorado comes in at 16, Clemson at 17, South Carolina at 18, Army at 19, Tulane at 20, and then I'll round out the top 25. Arizona State at 21, Iowa State 22, Missouri 23, UNLV 24, and Illinois comes in at 25.
Brett, I didn't know if you were segueing to me or not. I got some things going on around me here in the office, so I apologize.
That's all right.
But you brought up Colorado, and I know that I'm beating a dead horse to all of you Auburn fans that have watched or listened to me over the last 6 or 8 years. But I watched Deion last night with Betty, and her 100th birthday, and I'm thinking to myself, that guy right there with Bruce Pearl. I said it for a couple of years, but could you imagine the marketer that he is with Bruce Pearl at Auburn University right now? I said it over and over again, and there he is sitting right outside looking in at 16th, and he's about to go out and get the kid from Carrollton. Juju's going to end up in Colorado. And, you know, our kid here, and let me just say, because I noticed these things from a recruiting standpoint. Sedary Morgan and at Benjamin Russell that you and I have the great fortune of covering and get to see him every Friday night. And the 5-star rating that he has, he deserves every star and every plus that you can give. He's that type of athlete, and I think he's that type of kid too. So I can't say enough good things about him. But he gets Colorado off yesterday.
Right.
And it's not that he's kind of happy about it. He's thrilled. His family's thrilled. And you can say why. Well, there's a lot of different reasons they would be. But it doesn't matter. He's thrilled about it. Am I wrong, Brett?
No, he's extremely excited.
Shador leave on, but they bring Juju in at quarterback. If Deion hangs at Colorado, he may leave. He may go somewhere else. But I'm going to keep saying it until I piss you and everybody else off enough that you tell me to quit. Auburn could have made that happen, but we overthink everything. And we'll give people second chances, and we'll go out there and get coaches that we're not sure fit the identity that we want. One thing I know about him is he can sell a program, and he's won wherever he's been, and he's winning at Colorado in year 2. And I think he's got the Heisman Trophy winner at Colorado that he brought with him, and it's not his son. So we missed the boat on that. Anybody that disagrees with me, you're more than welcome. We had a lot of callers when it was going down. So, well, Deion's not a perfect fit for Auburn. We just went through fit at Auburn, Brett. I don't know what the hell the right fit is at Auburn football right now any more than you do.
Right.
I don't talk to anybody that knows the fit at Auburn and the culture and the identity that they want to build. I don't hear it. But he's winning football games. I tip my hat to him. He's doing a hell of a job.
Now, he's done everything that you could ask for at Colorado. I mean, Colorado was a dump. It was a forgotten program, and he went out there. And, you know, the reason people say that is because if people do things a little unorthodox and they don't do it, you know, the way everybody in their mind thinks it should be done, they kind of get outcast. They kind of become an outlier, and people with the personality of Deion Sanders goes, I don't really care what everybody else says about me. Randy, it's kind of me and you. I hate to say it. I don't care what anybody says about me. I have my skin, man, my skin's calloused over. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it takes balls to get on here and do this because somebody's got something negative to say about us coming on here and talk. I mean, look, it's keyboard warrior society we live in. Everybody's got an opinion until you face them up, and then they go away and they hide in the bushes. But Deion Sanders don't care what people think about him. He doesn't waver from what he does, and he doesn't apologize for what he does. And you know what? His style works, and he does things unorthodox, comparable to what the status quo. Does he do things like Nick Saban? No, he doesn't. Does he do things like Kirby Smart? No, he doesn't. He does his own thing, but it works. And I think that's where people in life have to figure that out for themselves in their personal life. I got to do what works for me. And he does what works for him. And kids gravitate to him. And he took a dump program over, and now he's made them a contender. So again, you can not like him or whatever, and you may not think he fits your school, but the guy gets results, and he backs up what he says. And he did that when he played football. Again, he'd be a massive target. He throws himself out there to get attacked because the way he talks and the stuff he says, if he falls on his face, man, people are just sitting there waiting to attack somebody like him. But you know what? They can't when he goes out there and he wins every week. So, again, now you take Shedeur off, you take Travis Hunter off, maybe a different story. That team's probably not near what it is, but he's got both of them. And what will he do when Shedeur leaves? I don't know. Only he can tell you that, but he's still recruiting his rear end off like he's going to be there for the long haul. So that's my take on Deion. I never was against Deion Sanders. Only thing I ever said about Deion is, would he be a guy that would be a long-term guy here? I'm thinking, I'm tired of flipping coaches. Is Deion going to be here a couple years and then go somewhere else? But you know what? Now that I think back on that, I take a couple good years and him going to the NFL and then somebody coming in to take his place rather than, a dump bag for 2 or 3 years and then having to kick somebody else to the curb and start over again. He's still in the same spot, but you would be in a better spot because you're coming off of a team that was going in the right direction. So that's kind of my little take on that. But no, he is doing a hell of a job at Colorado. Anybody that says he's not, stupid. And that's just all I can say about it.
Brett, let's hit on a couple of things. We close the program out. We're going to be on location with our Auburn Blitz program middle of December with a new sponsor that we've got over in Auburn. If you haven't been to Bunkers yet, please do. It's on West Glen. It's like 3 or 4 different areas built into West Glen. It's got great parking underneath. So
that place is awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to being a part of that group and being out there several times throughout the year to have some guests on and to do our 12-to-1 show live from Bunkers. So make sure to go out to Bunkers. One thing we're really working on that I want to spotlight is building our YouTube page. Go and find Auburn Blitz on YouTube. We've got TikTok rolling now. We got a lot of new things that we're trying to continue to get into the 21st century. We've been really big on TV and radio over the years, and we've morphed into some other things, but Brett and I are engaging some new outlets harder than we ever have, but we need your help. So go find us on YouTube, share that, subscribe to us, follow us there. I think a lot of you that are tuning in to our morning podcast are finding us through YouTube more than even Facebook and Twitter. That has been our main outlets out there. So those are a couple of things. And of course, I'm sitting here in Dable. Brett, we're really working hard on a new location in Auburn. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think we're very close to closing on a new location for Lee Marketing Group in Auburn. It's going to help Auburn Blitz out. It's going to give us a consistent spot for those to come by and possibly do some interviews and do some new things out of that Auburn location. But currently still here in Dable, Lee Apparel and Sign Source. Any sign you need, give Sign Source a call. That's from start to finish. From design to install, Sign Source can help you. And Lee Apparel is as busy as we've been in a couple of years. Elections matter, and they have mattered down here. The faucet has turned on. And if you're looking to spend some of your advertising dollars to get your brand out there, Lee Apparel would love to work with you on promotional product, screen printing, DTF, embroidery. 256-825-0197 is our phone number down here in Dable.
Absolutely. And again, on Auburn Blitz with our podcast and, our show every day and our post-game reaction shows, there's a lot of opportunity out there for all of you to promote your business. And again, Bunkers and Sense of Green and Alexander Smith, J.A. Smith Construction, Russell Dewitt Center, who are our main partners on Auburn Blitz. They're going to be getting even more. So please, if you'd love to be on the programs, we'll talk to you. We'll come see you, and we'll get you involved. We'd love to partner with you. Again, can't leave Pepper Tree Steaks and Wine out, man. Just outstanding people. Prime Steakhouse down at Stillwater's, Randy. You and I are going to go see Eric today, and another gentleman that we met, and they came and brought us some of the best food I've had in a long time. Between Pepper Tree Steaks and Wine and Prime Steakhouse, man, I don't know if we have two better food joints that I hate to use joints, but food establishments that we could have and be part of. And I'm telling you, outstanding. So, but Jerron, thank you, buddy. Wore down to you too. We appreciate you. And then Kyle said Prime to Lake Martin ought to be a movement. I think the ship sailed, Kyle, unfortunately.
Kyle, I pleaded, I cried, I wore hats, I shared photos of him in Auburn gear. I did everything you possibly could from my little pulpit to prod that to happen, and it didn't. And we make decisions because it's not the right fit for Auburn,
Well, we went out and got a guy that.
Hey, I know we're going off, but if somebody out there can give me a phone call and tell me what the perfect fit for Auburn is, I'd love to hear it.
Somebody likes to play golf.
Here's the only one that I know is a perfect fit for Auburn: Bruce Pearl.
Right.
Give me a marketer. Give me someone that demands excellence. If you can find me Bruce Pearl for a football coach, whatever the cost needs to be, we need to do it, because he to me is the perfect the guy. I can't envision anybody for Auburn better than we've got in basketball. I mean, even if he never wins a national championship, I can't envision anybody better than we have in Bruce Pearl for basketball.
Can't argue with you on that. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up here. We appreciate everybody, and we'll be back on today at lunch. Andy will be back in his home that he never leaves at the studio, and he'll be doing another show at noon, another Auburn Blitz. JJ will join him today, and then you and I'll be on Auburn Blitz tomorrow at noon. So looking forward to it. Everybody have a great day here.